PrymalChaos. Hey guys, PrymalChaos here. Welcome to the channel. So this video thumbnail popped up, I don't know, about a week ago or something like that. And I looked at it and I sort of approached it. I approached the concept of reacting to it with a bit of trepidation because, I mean, the song literally is called Suicide, which is definitely a loaded topic, especially knowing like the background of Ren and how, you know, he's had to deal with a lot of pain and obviously a lot of loss as far as, you know, we've heard him talk about, you know, losing friends and stuff like that in other songs. So this is just, the title itself is heavy, right? It's not something like, you could, because, you know, I mean, any artist could come out with a song called Suicide and it could be a top 40 song and it could be out there and they, you know, they've written it for whatever reason with whatever background or whatever influence behind it, right? And it can be a frivolous exercise that's a little bit trite and a little bit sort of well-meaning, but also kind of disingenuous as well. You know, it could be an artist who's trying to sort of demonstrate a little bit of depth or something that perhaps maybe they're lacking. But in this case, you know, it comes from a foundational perspective of pain and suffering, right? Very few people understand the lengths of suffering that someone like Ren goes through on a daily basis. And then add to that, obviously, people around him losing the battle, you know, and things like that. So there's this one, you know, I mean, I'm going to be completely honest. I was a little bit worried about doing this one. I was a little bit scared of it. As someone who's suffered a certain amount of loss as far as this sort of thing goes in the past, not anything like super intense for me, but I've definitely had people around me who've sort of lost their way. There's this weirdness to the topic itself as far as sociologically, as far as the way we, especially here in the West, deal with things like this, because it's one of those things where there's no roadmap, there's no guidelines set up, there's no way of understanding what best way to proceed in dealing with it if you're somebody left behind, right? Because I mean, it's not like it affects the person who's gone. It's the people they leave behind that are the ones who have to pick up the pieces and deal with it. And it can be difficult because, you know, it raises a lot of questions that I don't think anybody really has answers for. And that are things like, you know, could I have done more? Should I have seen warning signs? Should I have, is there anything I could have said or done? You know, maybe the message that they put on Facebook the night before was a call for help that went unheeded, whatever the case may be, you know. And there's a lot of other things too, you know. I mean, and that's dealing with the trauma of just loss in general. Before that, you can be angry at them. You could be, why didn't they reach out? There's a lot of things. It's a complicated issue, and it's one of those things where, again, there's no roadmap for it. So as a society, we don't talk about it probably as much as we should. Which in itself actually doesn't help, because the problem is one of those things that would be better served to be spoken about more readily and more comfortably. And maybe this song is the catalyst for that. Who knows? Like, I don't know. Maybe Ren's talking about this from the perspective of specifics as far as his own contemplation, the fact that he's lost people before, or it could just be a commentary on our social understanding of the topic. I don't know. I haven't heard the song. Either way, there's a weightiness to it. There's a heaviness to it that I don't mind saying that I was a little bit afraid of broaching on the channel. Controversial, you know. And I don't mean that as in I'm worried about the state of my channel. I was worried about maybe chiming in and being another pundit, sort of having an opinion on it, when really this song maybe just needs to exist on its own merit and just be out there for people to absorb, you know. I don't know that sitting in there at the end going, what a banger, is going to be the appropriate response to this one. So it was more a case of like, I don't know if I've got enough to say for this one, but you know what? I sacked up and I'm going to do it. So Ren, Suicide. I'm not going to run an ad on this one. I'm just going to do it. But I guess needless to say, if you know, if you're watching this and you're having thoughts, intrusive thoughts or issues or whatever, talk to someone. Find in your local area, find out whether there's a helpline or something, or call on a friend or a relative or something, but say something, because sometimes you've got to allow yourself a second chance. Anyway, Let's jump right in. Ren suicide. Here we go. Interesting.
Falling through the cracks of the night sky. A light goes out on the other side. Suicide, suicide, suicide. Oh, treading on the tracks in the night time. It never really felt like the right time. Suicide, suicide, suicide. I'm so fucking lonely beneath this. Narcissistic, can't keep a secret. Miscount sheep, but can't sleep, a misfit. Some say trouble, but some say sadistic. Bruises my brother, one time or the other. My skin felt counterfeit, silicone rubber. Bruises my sister, skin pop the blister. Dig deep, resist the feeling when it hits you. Falling through the cracks of the night sky. A light goes out on the other side. Suicide, suicide, suicide. Treading on the tracks in the night time. It never really felt like the right time. Suicide, suicide, suicide.
Okay, before the second verse. So through that, I was thinking about how to tackle this one, and I've decided to just run it on its own merit as far as being a song, right? Let's not put all of the heaviness and the weight behind what it is, and just talk about it like it was any other reaction, because I think that's about the best thing I can contribute. And look, first of all, it's interesting, like the sounds and everything he's chosen are a little bit more produced than what I'm used to with Ren, which is fine. I know that he's done a lot of other work and stuff like that, and I really like it. It's got a beautiful sort of contemporary, sort of somehow old school hip hop sort of thing, but there's so much flavor and stuff. And he's managed to compose a piece that sounds contemplative, right? It doesn't sound happy. It doesn't sound sad. It sounds kind of mysterious and dark. And again, his flow as well through the verses, or the verse so far anyway, is really sort of like melodically lyrical, you know what I mean? It sort of has like a flow to it that's just really comforting and comfortable. And the subject matter, I mean, so far it looks, I mean, it's a little bit tricky, because some of it's talking about him specifically, and then other things that are alluding to the fact that it's like, I think what he's getting at is like he's managed to dodge the bullet thus far, right? As far as it's sadness and depression and loneliness are affecting people all over the city. A light goes out on the other side, kind of to me implies that somebody's made the choice on the other side of town to end their life or whatever. And so he's talking through his problems. I believe he said something like, I'm so effing lonely. Underneath all the bravado and the narcissism, I think he might have mentioned, I can't remember the lyrics exactly, of him being this star in front of people now. And, I think he was illustrated by him facing off with one of the masks from, right there. Hang on, what was his actual lyric?
It felt like the right time. Suicide, suicide, suicide. I'm so fucking lonely beneath this. Narcissistic, can't keep a secret. Miscount sheep, but can't sleep, a misfit. Some say,
yeah, narcissistic, can't keep a secret. Like, maybe the challenge with him is that he feels like he's isolated and he's alone. But he literally puts all of his emotion out there in the world as his art, right? Can't keep a secret. He doesn't keep anything to himself. He gives it all out there. And yet somehow, even though he's finding that massive connection with his career essentially exploding with this groundswell of popularity from other people that his emotions have connected with, he's sort of in that position where, even though he's surrounded by thousands of people who are all cheering for him and wanting to support him and wanting to blow him up, he's still very much fighting his own solo battle by himself that no one else can understand, right? Or very few people sort of can really sort of, communicate with on a level of understanding. Also, just wanted to chime in and say, just get ahead of it. this could be and may be forevermore the best example of how to use AI generation, image generation for artistic content, because this looks amazing. It sort of reminds me of that sort of, you know, whiplash sort of style aesthetic changes that you see in like Into the Spider-Verse, you know, because they're constantly switching up animation styles, and it's surrealist and it's whatever. It seems cerebral. It seems like how you would imagine, and I guess in a way it kind of is in a digital format. It's the surreal nature of dreams and how nothing ever really exists in a solid form. Everything's always mutating and changing. It's the way our memory interprets things rather than the way we see things in the real world. That's what this feels like. And it couldn't be a more perfect match. I'm so glad that they didn't shoot this as a traditional music video, because it just works really well. I'm going to jump back a little bit.
Suicide, suicide, suicide. I'm so fucking lonely beneath this. Narcissistic, can't keep a secret. Miscount sheep, I can't sleep, a misfit. Some say trouble, but some say sadistic. Bruise is my brother, one time or the other. My skin felt counterfeit, silicone rubber. Bruise is my sister, skin pop the blister. Dig deep, resist the feeling when it hits you. Oh, I, falling through the cracks of the night sky. A light goes out on the other side. Suicide, suicide, suicide. Oh, I, treading on the tracks in the night time. It never really felt like the right time. Suicide, suicide, suicide. Sick boy, bitten by a tech boy. I feel like it's not me, it's the world that's sick. I'm so fucking washed up and see.
That was a callback to one of his other songs, wasn't it? I feel like it's a sample from something else. Let me know in the comments, because I again, I'm not really all that familiar, but that sounded like he was sort of calling back to previous art. If that's the case, that's really interesting, because it's kind of like this evolution of like an artist coming out and saying something and then going further down the track and then reinterpreting or reevaluating those statements, you know, artistically, you know, and focusing on them through his present lens, right? Ren's playing 4D chess, man, I swear to God.
I feel like it's not me, it's the world that's sick. I'm so fucking washed up and seasick. Masochistic kid with a split lip. 6 feet deep, I can't eat, I'm nervous. Won't stay down cause my body purges. Useless my mother, can't keep in my supper. Skin so pale cause my cheeks leak colour. Truth is my father, you choose your
lyrics,
karma.
man, wow.
The sword then drive through the armour. Oh, falling through the cracks of the night sky. A light goes out on the other side. Suicide, suicide, suicide. Oh, I, treading on the tracks in the night time. It never really felt like the right time. Suicide, suicide, suicide.
I wonder how to interpret that visual. So one of the things that always strikes me about this sort of topic, right? I just don't want to overuse the word, is that sometimes you see people who really have their shit together, and they, whatever reason, they're struggling with something internally that they just can't get ahead of, right? And then they make terrible choices with their lives. But then you see other people who, if you looked in the dictionary definition of what suffering is, you'll find a picture of that person, and they're just getting on with it and they're just living every day, you know? And so there was just a little bit of a compilation there of people, obviously homeless people, or a homeless man or whatever, that again, it sort of puts the things into perspective. You know what I mean? When you literally have nothing but a cardboard box and you're still fighting the good fight every day, it just goes to show that things like, you know, topics like suicide, it's there's no understanding of it. It doesn't make rational sense, because, you know, no matter how low you go, there's probably always somebody who's dealing with it, who's in a worse position than you. And again, if you're someone like Ren, who's constantly in pain or in suffering or whatever, you know, I guess sometimes it can feel like you're at absolute rock bottom. And, you know, they can speak from experience of knowing, you know, how dark the world can get, as opposed to somebody who's, you know, has everything but yeah, they just can't come to grips with it, you know? Interesting little visual cue there.
Suicide, suicide. Oh, I. Treading on the tracks in the night time. It never really felt like the right time. Suicide, suicide, suicide. Suicide, suicide, suicide. Suicide.
Actually, one other thing, hit me up in the comments. I'm trying to figure out how to interpret that line. It never really felt like the right time. Is that like, how do you interpret that? Because it can go in a number of different ways. It can be Ren saying, no matter how bad things got, it never felt like the right time to end it, right? Or it could be, my existence here has never felt like the right time. It's like I was here in the wrong time. Or, like me being here always felt like an inconvenience or something. There could be a number of different ways to interpret that line. And since he's been saying it repetitively through the song, I've been trying to get a handle on what that means. It could just be a cool rhyme. I don't know. But Ren doesn't typically work that way. Everything's always got a meaning. I don't think he ever frivolously just puts a line in there just to fill gaps,
Suicide, suicide. Suicide, suicide, suicide. Suicide, suicide, suicide. Suicide, suicide, suicide. Suicide, suicide, suicide. It's hard to take off from the ground when your wings are cut. Your stomach burns when you're drinking from an empty cup. You know the entire ocean came from my tear ducts. I see the world through Fibonacci sequences and double Dutch. I guess there's some that's born lucky, there's some that's not. I tried to cut away my bitterness, hatchet job. I locked my youth inside a trunk, inside a pickup truck, then dumped the whole thing over that same bridge the night you jumped. I think about that sometimes, vividly. What it felt like to look down and see tranquility. One sudden movement in a world of possibility. Only one movement to expose our fragility. I fucking miss you, and I miss myself. I miss thinking we were indestructible as well. I miss chilling by the pier cave and kicking back with Callum, Hugo, Sega, Justin, Stevie and the fucking lads. I miss missing that. I numb myself to close the gap. I never even call them up. The distance is my plaster cast. The truth is to the day you jumped, my childhood jumped too. But I still can't find that anger. All I find is missing you, man, I miss you. With all my rhymes, I picture running 5 minutes quicker, I'm right on time. I picture pulling you back over the edge and then we're crying, and holding you, my brother, and telling you that it's fine. Not the way that it worked, cause I was late like a jerk. There's not a day where I could find a way to break from the hurt. Your body missing, so we never got to wave to the hearse. I hope you're listening, I love you, man, I miss you absurd, fuck.
I need a break. Okay, sorry about that. I just had to compose myself a little bit. Wow. Do you know what makes this so special? It's the fact that Ren as an artist and doing these sort of performances stands alone in an industry where I think people have lost touch with what art is supposed to be. And that is an expression of your perspectives and your feelings and your pain, and, the struggles of your existence writ large in the form of your art, whether it be painting or writing or music or whatever. And I feel like the music industry in general is just obsessed with being a star, being famous, being a cult of personality, of like, being somebody who people aspire to be like, right? That's kind of at the core, that's what it is. People being rich and famous and living the dream through, what essentially probably started out as an interest or a hobby, which is art, right? And they got good at it, and they got good enough at it that people started to take notice. And then I think at that point, a lot of people lose track of why they're doing it. Maybe they didn't have a concept of why they were doing it in the first place. They just wanted to make music that people liked, or people made people happy, or whatever. But I see it as two different things where, you know, somebody else might have written a song like this. But I feel like 9 times out of 10 or 99 times out of 100 even, you'll get a song that, you know, may hit all the same marks as this or whatever. But at some point, you have to suspend disbelief and sort of understand that it was written almost as a gimmick, as like, well, we need a song that's emotional or whatever. We need something that's going to cause a visceral reaction, or we need this to happen to engage the audience or whatever. Whereas I feel like what Ren is doing is keeping a personal journal, and just happens to be out there in the world for other people to witness. You know, I don't buy for a second that there's any pretense about, wow, this one's going to be a hit, or it's going to be a banger, or this will make them cry. Wait till they get on the reactions and start bawling. Everyone's going to want to buy and download this track. That's not what's going on here. This is 100% in its truest form, pure art. You know, the pain is real. The suffering is real. The emotion is real. The pleading, it's not performative, right? It's therapy. It's what it is. And I think that that's, you know, it's very rare to find that these days, when art has become a commodity and it's commercialized and things like that. And I mean, there's even people out there that would do really extreme performance art, or extreme sort of, you know, deliberately controversial pieces. And they'll have some sort of a cockamamie philosophy behind it and stuff. And everyone in the art world will go, wow, that's amazing. Or they really, you know, really hit on something there as far as being topical or whatever. But I feel like a lot of the time it's just performative. It's people attempting to subvert the zeitgeist or whatever, you know, trying to come up with something deliberately shocking, you know, so that people will talk about it. Whereas I feel like none of that is going on here with Ren. There's no, I'm going to write this song and people are going to discuss it and maybe it'll win a Grammy or whatever. I mean, I might be wrong. I don't know Ren personally. I don't know what he's like, but to me, the authenticity and the realness of this is kind of what sells it to me. And it's not like a used car salesman going, you should buy this car, man. It's got some miles on it. It's a real deal. You know, there's no sales pitch here. It's just the art is existing on its own. Does it have contemporary sounds that sound at home, you know, on a record platter somewhere? You know, yes, it does. It's produced to sound elegant and rich and modern and eclectic at the same time. But, you know, it doesn't matter. It's all window dressing around the message. And the message is that Ren is in a lot of pain, you know? Yeah. I mean, I hope he's all right. I really do. Because, you know, I mean, again, we could all make that same mistake of thinking, man, he's got everything. His career's blowing up. People are responding to him artistically. They're giving him everything that anybody else probably assumes that they always wanted, which is attention, right? We live in an attention-starved society. And the more people blow up and take up some of that space of other people's interests, the less people get that attention, and the more they probably crave it, you know? I mean, at one point when they asked children in primary school, what would you want to be when you grow up? They would say a fireman or an astronaut or whatever. Now everybody wants to be a YouTuber or you know, an influencer or something like that. And look, I'm here, I'm on YouTube, I'm doing the same thing. But, you know, just with the modest channel that I have, I think I'm 23,000 subscribers now or whatever, which is blowing my mind to this day. I feel like it's taught me a lot about what attention is and, you know, why people crave it. And it's, you know, if I had to say anything, it's not what people think it is. It's not what it's cracked up to be. And the problem is it can be very addictive and it can be very consuming, right? And that's the thing. And I mean, I came into this at a fairly old age, so I can sort of ratify it a little bit more, you know, as far as how it fits in to me psychologically. But if I was somebody who hit YouTube when I was 15 or 16 and blew up and had 10 million subscribers, there's no telling what emotional damage that would do to a human being. So you know, this is one of those be careful what you wish for things. And getting back to Ren, I hope that people don't just assume that because everything seems to be going his way or everything is falling into his lap, he's finally getting the recognition he's always deserved, that will make him happy, because that's not how people work. You know, it's always the ones you least expect that are the ones who are suffering the most. So just remember that when you're pestering him on his Discord or whatever. There's probably more going on beneath the surface. You know, we all see the tranquility right there on the screen. But, you know, be careful is all I'm saying, you know, and yeah, I hope Ren knows that he can reach out as well. So yeah, this was fun. That's about all I got to say. I'm sure there's a million other things I could talk about, but I think I've said enough. I've taken up enough space. So yeah, this always feels really weird when I do this after this happens, but if you feel like supporting my channel, just buy me a coffee. I'll leave a link in the description, or just like, share, follow, subscribe. Send this to any sort of servers or anything that you think might appreciate the reaction. People seem to get something out of my reactions because I tend to engage a little bit more emotionally. So this might be the right one. So who knows? But anyway, thanks again, guys. Stay primal. Catch you in the next one.